Like the title of the video says, we are now going to be covering Protea's fourth ability, Temporal Anchor. Now, Temporal Anchor does a couple of things. What it does and what it doesn't do is kind of obfuscated into the minutia of testing. So if you go to the wiki, it has a lot of this information there. If you go into game, you're going to have to do a lot of testing before you kind of realize what this skill does. Now, what it says it does, let's go over that real quick, and then we're going to talk about a lot of other stuff, so just bear with me, guys. Drops a Temporal Anchor, which after a short duration, Protea rewinds to the triggering Temporal Implosion. To triggering a Temporal Implosion. Now, that doesn't exactly tell you what it does, but effectively, whenever you use this ability, you create a point in time, a point in space, more accurately, and then you rewind back to that time or space after you either press a button or the duration ends. And we're going to talk about some of the mechanics of the skill here in a second. Implosion damage increases based on the damage dealt between the anchor drop and rewind, so as long as this skill is active, it's going to be counting up all the damage you deal. Everything lost or expended in that time is returned, so this is pretty much anything you can think of. This is HP, shields, overshields, ammo, energy, even combo counter is restored. So we'll kind of take a look at all of that in a second. Dying while the anchor is active rewinds Protea to the anchor, saving her. But in doing so, Protea is knocked down and the anchor vanishes. So there'll be a little bit more on death in the Temporal Anchor when we get to it here in a second. But it's not exactly as safe as it sounds. But let's get into the stat line so we can kind of understand the basics of the skill. And then we're going to start jumping into all of the crazy small details. So, Drain. This thing costs 100 energy to use. The most important thing to know about the Drain is that if you cast this ability, you do not recover the cost of casting it. So I'm going to go back and I'm at 471 again. Keep in mind, if I have 471, so if I cast this ability, I have 470 whatever. I go over here, I pick this up, I get full energy. If I rewind, it sets me back down. So recovering health, recovering energy, recovering whatever is actually going to take you back down to the original value if you go above it. So what does this mean for the skill? In general, you probably shouldn't use this skill if you have lost all your ammo, if you're out of ammo. If you are at very low HP, you generally probably shouldn't use this skill unless you are outright using it to avoid death, and we'll talk about how you can do that in a second. But this is pretty much true across the board. If you're wanting to maintain a high amount of energy, health, combo counter, or whatever, try not to use this when you're at a low point. This is pretty straightforward, pretty standard. So let's look at the ability again. You have a duration of 8 seconds. This is not extremely long, but with a couple duration mods, you can get this up quite a bit very quickly, hitting, 15, even 20 seconds sometimes. And that is going to allow for you to do a lot of stuff. And we'll talk about how you can have these windows of burst damage here in a second. And then we're going to talk about the implosions. And I want to talk about the implosions ad nauseum. It's probably going to get boring. But effectively, implosions are how you CC and deal damage to enemies. Now, this damage is going to get recorded and then dealt back to enemies that are near your little after images, your ghosts. It does blast type, so newsflash, it's not going to be super great. But we're going to talk about all of this stuff in order as much as possible. But before we get into what each thing does, I want to talk about the mechanics of using the skill and just what the skill gives you in the beginning. And then we're going to talk about how you can use all of that to your advantage. So, looking at the ability itself, whenever you cast this ability, you will immediately become invincible. So, this isn't after you finish casting. This is when I press the button, I become invincible for 3 seconds. Afterwards, I go back to normal. Now, what does that mean? Effectively, what that means is this is going to allow you to cast the ability without being killed or interrupted while casting it, right? So this isn't meant to actually truly be an invulnerable. It's more like it ensures that you can cast the ability. Now, if you notice in the top right, whenever I use this ability, whenever it ends, so we got about 5 seconds left, whenever it ends, you're going to see a brief glimpse of me becoming invulnerable again. So there it is. You see it for a brief second. Now, when you rewind, you're actually going to be invincible for the entire duration of the rewind. So if I come out here, the rewind will actually be longer because we have a further distance to travel. So here we go, invulnerable the entire rewind. Additionally, whenever you rewind, you will clear statuses. So you clear statuses, you reset ammo, energy, combo counter, shields over shields, everything back to whatever it was, whether this goes up or down. So that's very important to keep in mind. Now, one thing that it does not pull back, and it never will pull back, is your abilities. So if I come over here and I cast a bunch of grenades, and I'll just keep doing that. And you can kind of cast during the rewind as well, which is a little weird if you're already casting. So I see all of my abilities still out here. It doesn't pull your abilities back, and that's the windows that we're going to be talking about a little bit later and how to use the skill effectively. So it doesn't pull your abilities back. This is especially useful if you think you're about to die or you're in a sticky situation. So let's go ahead and use our anchor here, and then we're going to cast down our shield grenades. So one of those is going to attach to me, and while we do have a lot of overshield, it rewinds that. We don't have our overshield anymore, but it will give us that shield boost so that if our shield gets gated, it'll have a longer duration. So that's going to be a very effective tool to utilize when you think you're going to die. You can pop that on, and even if you die, you get reset with a shield on you, one of those little shield satellites. So that's actually going to be really strong for defense, but let's see what happens. Let me go ahead and remove these guys. Let's see what happens when you die in this form. So it's not going to be as glamorous as you might imagine. So let's go ahead and do this. One enemy has been spawned. I forgot to unpause his AI. I'm sorry about that. Let me go ahead and do that now. So he's going to wait until I'm no longer invulnerable, and then he's going to probably kill me very quickly, hopefully. Come on, do it. So I rewind, and now I have 15 HP, but it does give me my shields back. So even though I had full health when I started that, it sets me to 15 HP. That 15 HP is exceptionally dangerous. Now, if you build her like a shield frame, this is going to be very, very dangerous for you. If you build her with quick thinking, it won't be as dangerous. So if you have any sort of toxin proc, or if you're against a toxic ancient or anything like that, anything that's going to pierce those shields, you may just die anyway. Now, you do cleanse conditions when you rewind, but that doesn't mean there won't be a gas cloud where you started your temporal anchor from, or there's a toxic ancient and there's enemies just sitting there waiting to shoot you. So just keep in mind, getting that rewind off to save your life truly is a last resort, and it's not something you're going to be able to abuse to have permanent invulnerability or anything like that. So the fact that your abilities stay out is the thing that we're going to talk about next. So in general, you're actually going to be able to save a little bit of energy by doing this. So if we use our ultimate, it usually will cost 50. If we use Blaze Artillery, it'll cost 50, right? So, and I might have said that wrong. Our ultimate costs 100, my bad, and our Blaze Artillery costs 50. So that means whenever we cast this, we're going to use 100, but then I can come over here and very easily cast all 3 of my Blaze Artilleries using 150 energy, and then reset and get that energy back. So it actually saves me a bit of energy whenever I use that in that combo, in that way. So you can do this with grenades, you can use this with pretty much everything, and you're going to probably want to. So in general, if you're really trying to base your build around this temporal anchor, you're probably going to pop temporal anchor, you're going to pop dispensary, you're going to pop all 3 of your Blaze Artilleries, and then you're going to start throwing grenades, right? And I managed to pick up some energy, so it won't show you as much. But yeah, so effectively, I'm going to be able to keep my dispensary. None of your abilities actually get rewinded out. So that was a free cast. All of my Blaze Artilleries were free. All of my grenades were free. So this is going to allow you to cost effectively all of your abilities for 100 energy, pretty much infinitely for that duration. It will do the exact same thing for weapons that basically empty themselves almost instantaneously. So if you have something like a comb, or really anything that has like insanely fast fire rate or insanely low maximum ammo, this is going to allow you to reset that ammo continuously over and over as long as you have energy, which your dispensary will allow you to have. So keep in mind, you're going to be able to use some weapons or even your abilities in weird ways where you have these windows of literally just limitless ammo, limitless energy to just do crazy amounts of stuff. 100 grenades on the map, all 3 Blaze Artilleries up 100% of the time, using weapons that you normally shouldn't be able to use like you're using them. So this is the real strength of the Temporal Anchor, in my opinion. But let's go ahead and get on to a couple other pieces of information. I want to get through this. We've already ran a little long for that, kind of how I would use the skill. This is how the skill is mostly, I guess, I don't want to say marketed, but effectively marketed. You deal damage, it records that damage, and when you rewind, it explodes. So let's talk about ghosts. That's what I'm going to call them, just for sake of simplicity. Whenever you use your Temporal Anchor, you're going to create these little ghost dudes behind you, right? Well, I guess they're not dudes. They're dudettes. But yeah, effectively they mimic whatever you were doing at the time in terms of a pose. Not super important. However, what's really important is the fact that your ghosts do not stack. What does that mean? Well, effectively, if I have this Corrupted Heavy Gunner, and I use my ult, and then I shoot him once, I recorded 100 damage, right? So I'm going to just do a bunch of circles around him. I don't even know where he went, because the implosion actually pulls them. So yeah, he just kind of disappeared. I'm sorry about that. Won't be able to exactly test that reliably just because the pull is so weird. But effectively, suffice it to say, ghosts don't stack. I have tried to get them to stack and do a bunch of burst damage on an enemy all at once, and it just doesn't end up happening. Effectively, what you're going to have is, because this damage type is blast, it's going to be effective against infested pretty much no matter what, and against pretty much everyone else it won't be that effective. Against shielded units it'll be okay. Against armored units it is trashed here. Do not use this skill ever on a Grineer map for damage purposes. It's not good. Even if you have a corrosive weapon, it'd be way easier to just kill them with the corrosive weapon. This is probably the weakest aspect of her entire kit. The one exception to this is obviously if you have a full team running corrosive projection, you could actually get away with a little bit of using this skill super offensively. But keeping that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at the ghosts a little bit. I'm going to just generate this guy out here real quick. So when you generate it, if you travel a certain distance, it'll create an additional clone. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So we have a bunch of clones. Now, it isn't based on time. It is directly based on distance. So if I do this and then I bullet jump, you're actually going to see that I have dropped a bunch of things up and down. So it's straight up after you travel X distance. I think it's like a meter or so. I'm not exactly sure. It will create a ghost. Now, that being said, the wiki does state that these are visual only. However, I have found this to be untrue. So I'm going to demonstrate one other aspect before I do that. And that is duration. Let me grab some duration. Alright, so we have a decent bit of duration. Let me throw in a bunch of duration. Now this does decrease our range just for clarity's sake. Temporal Anchor Implosion is now 6 meters. Keep that in mind. It will not be pulling from as far away. That won't really affect the test we're about to do, though. But keep in mind, whenever we do this, we have a set number of ghosts that can be out at a time. So you're going to see the ghosts back there, and you're actually going to start seeing them disappear. See them disappearing in front of me? So you can only have so many out at a time. Now, I've tried to do the numbers, but honestly, it got pretty bothersome. I think there's like 25 or 30 of them, roughly. So just keep in mind there is a limit to those. Now, the wiki says these are visual only. However, if we actually look at this guy right here, and then I'll hit him once, and then I'm going to run around. And I'm going to try to make sure there are no ghosts near him. So he has no, well, he has some dots on him still. Let's go ahead and move up. Now let's see what happens to him. He has not moved 1 inch, and that was very clearly within 6 meters. So these ghosts disappearing, they actually cease to have an effect on enemies when you do that. So keep in mind, if you have a really long duration on this skill and you're running across the map, you're not just carpet bombing everything from point A to point B. There is a limit to how far back your ghosts reach. That and the fact that you can't multiply your damage by just circling an enemy multiple times really hurts this skill and its effectiveness. So if you have an enemy and you basically surround him, he doesn't get hit by each of them, he only gets hit by one. Your ghosts don't always stay out. However, your ghosts can hit multiple enemies, so the explosion radius is fairly large for this kind of skill. However, it is going to pick one of the ghosts. Usually, from what I can tell, it's the oldest ghost, and that is the thing that's going to hit them. So let's go ahead and take off the lowered range real quick. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to straight up show you the damage dealt. And also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in pretty much as favorable of a position as I can. So let's go ahead and look at the skill real quick, and we're going to talk about how to upgrade it, I guess you would say. So that 25%, that damage right there, that scales with our ability strength. So let's go ahead and put on Blind Rage, and I'm also going to proc my passive, which is an additional 100% ability strength, right? So we have 49%, oops, sorry, I think I hovered over the wrong one. 49% implosion damage here. So this records 50% of the damage we deal, and it will deal that much damage to enemies. Now, when I proc my passive, this should go up to about 75%. So we have that. And I'm not going to use my AoE weapon. I'm going to use, well, this is an AoE weapon too, but it's single target for these purposes. Oh, I need more energy because, you know, I have negative efficiency right now. But let's go ahead and do that real quick. Sorry about that. And we're going to create some ghosts just in a straight line in front of these guys. And then I'm going to shoot this guy in the head until he dies. Stop moving. Stop moving. Alright, so he's dead. Right? So we have a couple ghosts here. That was enough damage to kill him. 33k damage. This is how much damage was dealt to these guys. Basically nothing. Basically nothing. So keep in mind, against armored units at high levels, this thing is pretty much trash tier in terms of dealing damage. Now, if you're against infested, like let's just put in some, and this is, I was doing this testing earlier. Let's put in 2 of these, 2 of those, and 2 of those. So let's go ahead and simulate out some ancients here. I forgot to kill those guys, but kind of whatever. So we can actually do the same exact testing here. So I'm just going to kind of walk across those, and I'm going to kill this guy. Stop moving. Alright, and then I'm going to rewind. And you can see that the disruptors didn't take very much damage, the healers didn't take very much damage, the etc, etc. So your damage recorded against each enemy type, if it's armored, is going to be bad. Let's go ahead and kill and do the exact same test, but this time I'm going to be shooting one of the ancients. So let's go ahead and do this, make some little dudes, and I'm going to shoot this toxic ancient here. Crap. I did not mean to kill those two, but let's see how it fares against ancient healers. Hopefully we didn't lose them all, and we did. So let's go ahead and just reload that just to make sure that doesn't happen again. I apologize. Such is the nature of this kind of testing. And we're going to come back out here. We're going to do the same test again, but hopefully not screw it up. We need more energy. We screwed it up. Here we go. Alright, let's try this again. Alright, so we recorded 31k. So we can see we almost killed them. We did a bunch of damage to them. So this is going to be very, very effective against ancients. It's going to be very effective against infested in general. But it's going to be very, very bad against alloy and against ferrite armor. It's going to be actually even worse. It's going to be even worse against ferrite. So real quick, I just want to show kind of why this is. Let me go to this page real quick. Hopefully we don't get some sort of ads that'll get us in trouble. And I'm just going to bring up the wiki page real quick, and we're going to look at blast. So blast is good against fossils. That's our ancients. It's bad against sinew. This is literally a boss. We don't care at all about this. It's good against machines. That's the little dudes that you have no problem killing anyway, like rollers and whatnot for Corpus. And then it's bad against ferrite. This is horrible. And then it has no penetration against alloy. So this thing isn't good at all against your armored type enemies. It's very, very bad. Now, let me talk for a brief minute about how I would use this skill and in what situations I use this skill. So you can use this as an exploration skill. So whenever you use this ability, you can actually tap the ability to immediately rewind from wherever you were. This is good if you need to go out, assassinate a target, and then get back to your team quickly for whatever reason. Now, if you tap the ability, or you use the ability, and then you hold down the ability, you can actually cancel the cast and stay where you are. So this isn't going to like take you back into a death sentence. It's not going to slow you down on maps if you popped it on accident or if you popped it for defense purposes. You can actually sort of spam this for invulnerability if you do it that way. So you kind of get some invulnerability. Right when it ends, you cancel it and you cast it again. This is going to be very expensive, but you can get some actual invulnerability frames doing this. So you can use it for exploration in that kind of way. You can use it to reset ammo, energy, and all that kind of stuff. And interestingly, and this is the last thing that I'm going to talk about for, I guess this way, for the reset ability, it will allow you to reset your combos as well. So if I come in here, let me go ahead and go over here. I'm going to use my ability after I get some combo. So I have a combo of 3 times. And you'll see after it ends, I actually go back to having 3 times. So this can be extremely powerful if you get a lot of duration, build up good combo stacks, pop this, and then start heavy attacking everything. You'll be able to get a lot of attacks off if you have melee efficiency on, and then rewind and get it all back. So this can be actually really cool if you combo it with certain types of weapons or certain strategies with melee and other things like that. But if you're using it to outright just deal damage with the explosion potential, you're probably looking at the wrong skill. So I think that's going to cover it for this ability, guys. But like always, if I missed something or misrepresented anything, please let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.